The number you have dialed. The number you have dialed.
I don't know how we do it. We usually press speaker. Can you ask Chris? I don't know what, again, this is great. And no one else is here, which you really on top of it. Let me see if I think we're doing okay now.
Welcome to the audio conferencing center. Please enter a conference ID.
Thanks.
Followed by pound.
Don't worry, we may call you. Okay.
If you're the meeting organizer, press star now. We're now joining the meeting. Please wait. You're now joining the meeting.
Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Nancy Rossi?
Good morning, Mayor Rossi.
Good morning.
Who else is with you today, Mayor?
Well, right now, no one, but they all know about it. I know that the Board of Ed was signing on, so they signed on separately, so I don't know, they sign on from their
Yeah, they're with us. They have the whole team here. I wasn't sure if you had anybody else with you.
No, I know Lee Tanner was here, he left for a moment, and then Scott Jackson's supposed to be here, and then a little bit further down in the agenda, I have Pam coming, Jermaine, Wilma's supposed to be here, and Scott's supposed to report out on corrective action plan if there's been any corrective action since the last meeting.
Perfect. All right. Well, we have a quorum, so I want to get the meeting started. Julian, if you could start the recording.
This meeting is being recorded and or transcribed.
Thank you, Julian. Good morning, everyone. This morning is, I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Municipal Accountability Review Board for the West Haven Subcommittee. It is Tuesday, March 22nd. We do have a quorum and the time is 10:05. I'm Kimberly Kennison. I'm the designee for Secretary Beckham, and with me today is Christine Shaw, designee for Treasurer Wood. Oh, thank you, Bob. I just saw that you joined us. Thank you. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of February 22nd. I do have one word change in here, which is very small typo. But if I could get a motion, I can then update the edit that I'm looking for.
I will move the minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. How about a second? Thank you, Christine. The item that we need to adjust in the minutes is on page 1 under the third paragraph, second sentence all the way down to the right. It says by deactivating. I think it was the card B deactivated. That's the only adjustment that I'm looking for.
This has to happen before you guys, because I told you the same thing. Yeah, Scott? Scott, just to let you know, it's muted.
So, members, any other discussion?
She's all the way down. I mean, the Board of Ed and the city budget has to be looked at and talked
I hear that.
about first, so.
Can we get a vote? All in favor, opposed, or abstain?
Well, there's no reason to stay unless you're
Aye.
talking about the Board of Ed budget
Aye.
or the city budget. I mean,
Very good. Well,
then we're going to ARPA funds.
I think that's everybody. Right, Julie?
At least an hour.
Yeah, and I'm an aye.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Lynn.
Yeah, well, I didn't speak. Yeah.
Not last, but right.
So that's all under everybody, so the minutes have, passed, and we can move on to the next agenda item, which is the Cone Redmond, audit report. I want to let you know that, at this time, Cone is still drafting the report, and it is scheduled to be delivered, to OPM by the end of this month. The other item that is, still pending is that the, OPM Office of Intergovernmental, has not received the final report detail, from West Haven. That item is pending, and I am told that they reached out to the mayor and Scott Jackson as of yesterday, again, for another reminder that, their final report, data information has not been submitted.
That it hasn't been submitted.
Do you have a timeline of when we could anticipate that would get completed, Mayor? Or Mr. Jackson?
Absolutely. So I have a call, or Martin Heft and I have been trading calls. There are some certifications that need to be submitted as part of the submittal process, and I just wanted to make sure that we were going to be in line in those certifications.
Okay. So do you think that things will be completed, within a week, a timeline?
No, like a day.
Do you have a timeline?
A day.
Okay.
End of day.
All right. Thank you. That's good news. All right. Any questions? All right. The next item on the agenda is item number 4, and it's review and discussion of the Board of Education for their budget of fiscal year 2023. And I do know that Superintendent and his team are on the line, and I'm going to turn it over to you to update us on your budget.
Sure, thank you, Jim. So,
Yep.
as you know, we submitted a flat budget to the state.
I'm sure some
And we are reviewing that budget.
It's the
But I think it's important for the members of the committee and the administration to know, and certainly telling it to the council that any public hearings that okay, that we have been surviving and in fact thriving because of COVID funds, ESSER funds, a construction grant which included all new technology at West Haven High School. We were able to add our budget, which was probably the best use of ESSER funds according to the instructions. 50 new positions to support kids coming back to school and making up for deficiencies. We use a lot of our funds for technology, these spaces. But at some point, frankly, the city's going to have to pull me up. We were listening to get a presentation at our Board of Ed meeting last night from our technology team. Again, we've been able to take advantage. We went from, prior to COVID, less than 3,000 devices, which we had spread across computer labs across our district, to a one-on-one computer plan, which gives every child access to computers in their classroom. Most of those were free or purchased again through COVID funds or on a lease that we were able to pay off early because of those funds. But as you all know, technology gets old quick. Anytime you put a computer device in the hands of a young story, some of our teachers, they break, and that's going to happen next. We've been able to outfit the classroom with the media board, which is a high-tech term for a smart board, which are being used. Technology now drives our instruction. So, at some point, the city's going to have to pay. Our IT team last night said, down the road, it's going to be, in order to keep up where we currently are, a $2, $3, or even a $4 million investment to the district. So again, I'm not asking for that money today, but I think long term, unless we get a commitment from the city or the state continues to fund one-on-one devices. Again, we're very fortunate. We're an alliance district. I think the governor, when COVID hit, threw a lot of money at districts like ours especially. But again, there's going to be a long-term price to pay. Maybe he's got in the back of his mind that he's going to continue to fund those kinds of initiatives. But, you know, without a guarantee, there's no turning back because clearly technology drives our district. A couple of other things. Again, we added, as I mentioned to you earlier, 50 support positions, which include EL coaches, math facilitators, reading teachers to help bridge the gap. We have a growing, by leaps and bounds, the EL population. We had 110 new students added to our rolls this year. And we anticipate the younger students getting older, having to add more staff eventually, probably some of the funded positions and reallocate them that we use in some of the ESSER funding. But as the kids get older, we're going to be more supported in our middle school, and our high school certainly. Special education costs continue to rise. Again, I'm saying this not because we need the money now, but I think it needs to be part of I know it needs to be part of a long-term plan. And I look forward to more discussions with you at the city regarding those. Our population will go down, but I think the needs are clearly going to go up. Steph, Funny Larry, our special ed director, our kids who
synopsis. Students that attend an outplacement, and overall we have over 1,200 students a night, which is about 20% of our population.
And we're seeing a lot of ID even in our kindergarten classes. I know this year we placed several students out already. And they came in here fresh off of COVID and out serving in, but having attended preschool, solid preschool programs. So we are seeing a high need in the district, and that's no secret. That's going on all over the state. Kids have a lot of social and emotional needs, and again, we hired the personnel to address many of those needs. Some of them are greater than we can do in our schools. Last thing I want to point out is that there's a statewide teacher shortage, which I believe, based on numbers and statistics that are going to get even greater. And I know West Haven just came up with the money to pay our police officers, which is well deserved. But our teachers start at the lowest salary level in the area, and we certainly need to be more competitive. So down the road, when that contract's up, we're going to have serious conversations with the city about attracting and retaining qualified teachers. Many of our other unions also, to be here, haven't received a raise. Our AFSCME employees, for example, have been frozen on step for 3 years and have received no raise. So, again, this year you see a 0%. Next year you may see a 0%. But, again, in my mind, working with the city, working with us, we've got to come up with a long-term strategy to address those needs, unless more money comes from other sources, which is possible. And that's my pitch. Again, I hope you understand that I'm trying to be realistic. Again, I don't want to take money as well need, but I do see needs coming down the road.
Understand. And I think our 5-year plan had it flat for all 5 years, if I recall.
Give it a slight increase in the
Okay.
fifth-year term.
Okay.
But in some respects, COVID was a good problem because it literally changed the way we deliver instruction to kids. Again, you go from 8,000 to 3,000 to over 8,000.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's the reality of it. And those are going to have to, we're going to have to maintain that.
Sure. I see Mr. Hamilton has his hand up. Tom?
Yeah, thank you. A question for you, Neil. Can you give us a little better understanding in terms of the total future funding gap that you see? It sounds like you're projecting that you're going to have financial needs in terms of technology replacement. I'm assuming that may be a couple years out into the future, as well as funding relative to some positions that you've added with COVID funding. And I don't know whether all of these positions are expected to need to continue or whether some of them will drop off. And I'm also looking for some understanding as to when you think that financial hit will first hit the school district or the city, so that we can start to understand when does money need to be layered into your overall long-term financial plan. When does it need to be layered in, and how much needs to be layered in?
Sure, again, I would say we are solid technology-wise, given the amount of equipment which we've been able to purchase, some of which hasn't arrived yet because of supply chain issues. So I think for the next 2 to 3 years, we'll be fine technology-wise. But again, based on what I'm hearing from our IT group, we're saying probably in the neighborhood of a $3 million investment coming 2 to 3 years down the road to start the refurbishing and upgrading to whatever the newest and latest technology is. And then as far as positions go, we have added 50 positions throughout our district. We have 10 schools, so it's not that many per school. To the tune of, again, this is all ESSER funding, $2.2 million a year. So it will be good, it is good for this year and at least 2 more years, so almost $7 million have been put in, will be factored into not only this year's budget, the upcoming budget, but the following year's budget as well. Now, I think we'll be able to eliminate some of those positions as teachers retire. I think we can probably close some classrooms down with increasing population. However, I think the need is going to grow. I'm particularly concerned about our EL population. It's funny, but here's a quick side note that may or may not have anything to do with this, but I thought it was really interesting. Last night, I left West Haven High School where our board meeting was, and I drove by Tater Park, which is a ball field right around the corner, and there were grown men, probably 20 to 25 of them, playing cricket. Now, cricket, that was the first time I'd ever seen that in my 59 years of living and working in West Haven. So that tells you how our population is changing, and we're going to have to be prepared to meet those needs. And that was the first thing that came to my mind. But again, I think that we will be able to eliminate some of those jobs, but I think the need in EL, special ed, and I don't think the social emotional needs of our students are going to go away anytime soon. So I don't think we'll need money for 50 positions, but I think we're going to need money to continue to support kids. And again, I'm particularly concerned about our low starting salary count. That's got to be addressed at some point.
So, but if I heard you correctly, it sounds like you've got the ESSER money through next year's budget. Is that correct?
So I heard
that, or is it one more year out?
Yes, sir. The final ESSER grant is to be spent by September 1st, 2024. So fiscal year 24-25 will be when financially we'll release them.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Great. I think as the 5-year financial plan gets updated, that this needs to be taken into consideration by the city, and whether or not there's going to be additions to state funding to help cover some of these things, I don't know, but I'm sure other school districts or many other school districts are going to be facing the same issue, but it is something that certainly needs to be planned for.
Tom, if I can, I think you're exactly right. I think many districts are in the same boat, but I think I would do my job if I could bring those issues to you guys today.
No, thank you for doing so. Mr. White, I see that you're waving.
Yeah, just please. I absolutely agree with Tom that this has got to be put into the 5-year plan and start thinking about it now. I have two sort of technical points on the budget. I noticed that clerical spending was going up almost 50% by $400,000, and that collectively there was a $450,000 reduction in classroom teachers. That's out of 27 million. But I was just wondering if you could comment on those two items.
Sure. The classroom teacher reduction was due to the COVID and ESSER funding. We shifted some salaries to those funds based on the allowable expenses of the grant. And the main item that went up, the clerical, CO7, I believe the account went up significantly. We had a lot of in-house movement over the years that was never, the accounts never changed. So when we had the transition to ADP, we really took a look at where each individual was charged to, and we right-set our budget to make sure each individual is charged to the correct coding account. And going forward, if the superintendent's not here or I'm not here, someone will be able to pick up and know where everybody is supposed to be.
So if people were moved into the clerical category, where were they moved from?
They were, let me get the right, please. So there's multiple clerical accounts in our budget. PO7 was the one that grew exponentially. C28 went down. C30 went down. So we're just moving them within the clerical line. Where some clerical staff left schools and came to the central office. So we were getting them out of the school accounts and putting them to the correct clerical account.
Okay, thank you. One more quick thing. I noticed that health, that benefits, including health, are flat. Whatever you're doing, you want to spread the word.
And we were able to keep that flat because the positions that were shifted to the ESSER funds and the new positions that are on the ESSER funds, their benefits are on those grants as well.
Okay, it's going to be part of the shifting back, the issue of whether these positions are permanent or not.
Yes, so the salary benefits will have to be shifted back and taken into account when these funds are no longer available to the district.
Okay, thank you.
I have a piggyback question off of Mr. White's question regarding the health insurance. So I would assume that this year the health insurance would have been the year for it to decrease based on the $1 million savings that we took for moving to the partnership plan, and then adding again the 8% variable potential increase in that plan. I'm wondering, and you can see in your year-end projected actuals, because we do not have audited statements as of yet, that you're showing a savings there of approximately almost $2 million. So in benefits, there's a $2 million savings if we look at the actuals and then take it forward. It looks like we're keeping it flat, but I think that those funds could be used in like your salary and benefit areas that maybe in the future, you're showing in your memo that you have a gap, which was the 2.4.
I think there's a couple of answers to that question, Ken. First, I think last year our self-insured plan did better than the rates that were established for it. So that's why there was a significant savings last year. And why we don't show the $1 million savings going forward by the move to the state partnership plan is we have 50 new employees that we are paying benefits for. So that made up a large portion of any savings that we thought we would see in year one.
Okay, so really they're still being carried then by the operating budget, not covered by the extra grant funds.
It's a little above.
Little above. Stephen, I see you have a question.
Yeah, so I've looked through some of the numbers and, again, a very thorough and nice job on your presentation for the Board of Education. My question is, has anybody run, or what is your idea of what your enrollment's going to be a year and 2 years from now? Because I would imagine that all these numbers have to be based off of I see the enrollment of 5755 on one of the sheets. What I don't see is what the increase or decrease was from the previous year, or an increase, or a proposed increase or decrease in the next few years. I would imagine that all these numbers going forward need to be based off of a specific level of enrollment. And that's assuming, I mean, your numbers are all going, your cost of providing the balanced education and these services have to be commensurate with an increase or decrease in the enrollment, I would imagine.
Yeah, sure. So we work every year. We receive from being a member of executive, don't ask me the acronym is for the New England something, but they give us a 10-year projection of enrollment. There's no, well, it's been pretty good and pretty consistent. We do expect a decrease in enrollment over the next several years. However, I believe needs are going to continue to rise. As I mentioned earlier, I think we'll be able to eliminate some classrooms without class size going up. But I think we'll have very high need. The other interesting thing is that one area we're not seeing an increase is at West David High School. Our enrollment remains pretty high here and higher than expected. We have a brand new facility. I have in Haven, frankly, which kept their schools closed 2 years, and so a lot of kids found their way to West Haven High School. Many of them were magnet students who lived in West Haven. So the enrollment remains high here, but overall we do project it to go down. I can get to you, get to Matthew, get to Kimberly, the 10-year projection, which we go by every year when we start to put our budget together.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to know, because I would think that if there's a significant reduction, then that must affect the cost per child per service, and that might help you, because as I look at some of these numbers, there's such so much money coming from the state, from the federal government, that you hope that that continues, I guess, going forward at somewhere around the same level, and if not, I think you have to, as you do your projections, I think you have to really take into account some sort of decrease in funding, perhaps, just so that you kind of buffer your numbers, so that you're not unfortunately surprised a couple of years from now if you have a little bit more of a shortfall that you might think. The other thing, you mentioned something about all these, a fair amount of young people matriculating into your school system from New Haven. Is there a way that you, I know in the past we had this with the Hartford, that they were monitoring where all these,
Residency.
were coming from, right, for residency? Question, is there a group or do you have a task force of some sort that monitors where these new students are coming from to make sure that they're, let's say, the taxpaying resident?
Yeah, well, first of all, given I think I mentioned, West Haven being so close to New Haven, we have about 1,000 kids, 1,200 kids who attend magnet school. So, here, for example, what we saw happen was New Haven kept the doors closed. Many of the kids who were enrolled in magnet programs there came back to West Haven. And we even played more sports, which attracted some. They provided a mix of more activity. The other thing we're seeing, my special ed director just pointed out that we are getting, and again, I think this is a trend in this area, a lot of people left the state of New York, and New York City in particular. So we did get some students there. In my superintendent, we have a forum, a sheet that says, since the beginning of this school year, and again, I think this has to do with COVID, so I don't think this is going to be that erratic, but 798 kids enrolled since the beginning of the year, 376 left. That's a net of about 422 kids, increase in population, which we didn't anticipate. 110 of those were EL students. So again, you can eliminate classrooms, 80, but you're going to pick up the need because you're going to have to, teach many of those kids English. And many of the kids, especially the older they come in, the less schooling they actually have. So it becomes more challenging to teach them English while you're teaching them subject matter as well.
No, it's clear that the demographics of the entire area are changing, and that's something you're going to have to offer. It's great that you're recognizing it now.
Mr. Hamilton, Stephen. Tom, Stephen.
I noticed in looking over your energy line items, I assume the budget was probably put together before Ukraine, but I noticed your electricity is flat compared to last year's actual, this year's budget. Your heat for natural gas for your building is flat, and gasoline, which doesn't look like it's enough money to cover school bus transportation. So I don't know if that's built into your transportation contract, but have you looked at all at the impact of increase in energy costs over the last few months, and whether or not that will require some adjustments to any of your energy accounts?
Yes, it's something that we will monitor once the city finalizes their budget, gives us our actual numbers, even though we're not asking for an increase, and we go back to the board. So if the energy prices continue to rise, we will take that into account in our final adopted budget for next fiscal year. Also, just to note, we have entered into many solar projects that we hope will keep our energy spend down.
That's good news.
Any idea what the exposure there is? I mean, it's not obviously the biggest item in your budget, but it's maybe a few $100,000. I don't know if you've got a better handle on how much financial exposure there is there.
I think it is less than a few $100,000. I don't think we have that much exposure.
Okay, thanks.
Tim, I believe I just sent you the enrollment projection.
Okay, thank you. Stephen, do you have another question? Your hand is still up, or you just didn't put it down yet?
Well, you know that me and the computer are always phones, so.
No, that, I want to make sure that I do not skip over you.
No, okay, apologize for keeping it up.
You're fine. Any other questions from the members? Mr. White, I see you coming back. No?
Just to mute myself.
Oh, all right. No other questions? Neil, I have a question. Oh, go ahead.
No, sorry, you go first. I was just I have a question if the members are done.
Thank you. Just one question, Julian, at this moment. Superintendent, are you, I just want to make sure in your letter to the mayor, in the front of it, where you brought to our attention the $1.3 million in Alliance grant that was used, as well as the 2.4 in ESSER funds. Will you feel that your exposure is in the future of, I'm going to say, one-time funding being utilized to help solidify the base of your financial structure, not one-time money? And that would be the staff that you said that you brought on, the additional teachers. Are you saying that the exposure is the 2.4 million?
Yeah, honestly, Kim, I don't believe the Alliance grant is gonna go away.
I don't know, yeah, right.
Original, proposal is a 5-year one, I think we're now going into around year 7.
Yeah.
I think there's always been fortunately, the state is always taking into consideration the larger urban community towns, West Haven is, definitely one of them. So I see that increase as being kind of steady, but certainly the ESSER fund, 2.4, is more of a risk for us down the road.
Okay, thank you. Julian?
Thank you. My question is, sort of on the theme of grants as well. And we received an all-fund summary, which was basically the fully loaded Board of Ed budget with all of the anticipated revenue sources, including ESSER and the Alliance grant and so forth. And I think at least for the 5-year planning purposes, that's going to be obviously an important element of planning out and identifying the extent to which there's a structural deficit. But my question is, in the current all-fund summary that we received, which is extremely helpful, it did identify about $60 million of non-general fund support in the form of Alliance, ESSER, and ARPA funding. In prior years, the sources of non-general fund support came from sort of more routine grants like IDEA, Title I, and so forth. And I'm just wondering if you could speak to is there a relationship between those grants and the ESSER funds in the current projections, or because those routine grants were not depicted in the all-fund summary for FY23, but they were in prior years.
I asked the routine grant that we get year after year do this and get it back to Mark.
Thank you.
This is just a depiction of kind of adding the extra funds, how these grants won't be around and how we're utilizing them currently to make our budget work, whereas Title I and IDA, I think those are allotments that, based on our district, we will always continue to do.
And most of those funds, from years and years prior, go for salary and benefits to specific teachers that would fall under the
Understand. Yeah, so Matt, it was important that when you're providing us all funds, that we have all funds.
No, not a problem.
Thank you.
Italy. Always there.
Perfect. Julian, any other questions?
I have a question. I find it helpful, the trend analysis that was included in the materials, which breaks out ECS grant monies from local funding. I'm curious to know, does that trend analysis extend to the ESSER funding sources as well?
It's not included, if that's what you're asking. We're talking about, what you see is the allotment, the bottom line is the allotment of the state.
Right.
Which is the ECS grant came with the local funding.
Yeah, the ESSER funds are our standalone, grant for allotment.
Okay, so, and do you have trends or historical information for those ESSER grant funds?
This is the first time we were receiving it.
Okay. All right, thank you for that.
Do we have a trend analysis? I know I've looked through all of this on student enrollment. Or no, that's what you just sent me, right, Neil?
Yes.
Okay, very good. And I'm wondering also if you have a trend analysis. I saw like 2 or 3 years on the special education. And if we could get like enrollment numbers versus the cost.
Yeah, that shouldn't be an issue. If you're talking, students who are outplaced, special ed facilities,
Yeah.
yeah, we can, I can get that together.
So it's actually 2 things, because you have an in-house program. So how many students are participating in your in-house program? And how many are outplaced? And how many, excuse me, sorry, in total, for the cost for each?
Why don't you give yourself the information now?
So going back to 17, 18, the currently we used to average about 130 students who are outplaced this year, every year. This year, we are at 115. However, like Neil had mentioned, the need is not gone. We've just come up with creative ways to create programs within districts so that they're not outplaced, which saves us overall with tuition and transportation, but the students still require a great deal of service. We just met their needs within districts.
We work a lot with ACES. We started a new program at one of our elementary schools, that one, that's still running at West Haven High School, where they come in and provide the services, which helps us keep students because those are just two examples.
Some other things that have impacted our budget, last year, they created new legislation where districts are including students with profound delays to the age of 22. In the past, student service of those students to the age of 21, so adding an extra year of eligibility has impacted our budget. Transportation, specifically with our students that are homeless, we've seen a slight decrease with the eviction moratorium, but we do have students that, for example, I have siblings that live in London, which their transportation is about $500 per day. We're keeping an eye on that. And then, as Neil has mentioned, with the overall, with our gaps created by COVID, we've had additional positions for meeting those learning and social skills.
Good. Could you still provide us a trend in those categories so we can see how special ed is growing based on the enrollment and the...
Well, these are special needs kids. So we probably have.
I don't think I heard a response. Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. And Mr. Hamilton?
Yeah, thank you. That last round of questions takes off an issue in my head, which is the excess cost grant and Medicaid grant. And I know the way that school districts and municipalities handle that varies. It's not always cut, whether the money goes to the school district, whether the money goes to the municipality, or whether the money is split. Can you refresh our memory as to how West Haven currently handles this? And I may have some comments or recommendations after I hear how that's handled.
Both Medicare and excess costs, 100% come to the school district. The mayor did a great job when she was elected to realize that those funds are necessary for the board to continue educating the students, because in years prior, it wasn't always given to the school district. And that's
Okay, great. So I think that's the correct way to handle it. I was sort of hoping that that wasn't the case, so that perhaps that could serve as a backstop when those funds disappear on you. But thank you for the answer on that.
All right, any other questions from the MARB members on the Board of Ed budget? I don't hear any, so thank you very much for updating us. If anybody should have any additional questions, you can push them through to myself or Julian, and we will get them out to the Board of Ed. There's some follow-up that we're looking for, and thank you so much for your presentation today.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Great. Next item on the agenda is a review and discussion of the mayor's FY 2023 recommended budget. And Mayor? Or Scott Jackson?
Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to give a rough overview of it. I know Julian has started looking at it already. I don't know if he's finished. I know he's already found a couple of errors, but they will be fixable. So if it's only two, I'm happy with that. Yes, what we did was one of the main things. We were very fortunate to benefit with additional pilot funding this year, which has been very, very helpful, because I had signed on early with our neighbor, Mayor Elliker, and wrote letters, and we lobbied for this, and we did receive a substantial increase of ECS funding. We also worked with Michael Milone as far as the conveyance tax. We call it recording instruments. Again, we were able to increase that funding, and in fact, my understanding is we probably could have increased it a little bit more, but I always rather stay on the conservative side as far as that goes. We did, we went ahead and we did increase positions. I believe it was 7 altogether. Obviously, 3 are in procurement that we never had 3 full-time positions there, probably the whole time I was on accounts, which began in 2005. So we did that, and I know there was 1 or 2 in finance, and I believe 1 in park rec. We did leave the mill rate flat for the city. We had to, the other challenge this time around was the anticipated, because I'm hoping it comes through now that we went through so many different scenarios, the motor vehicle tax to Michael Milone again helped us tremendously with that, but we only put in the smaller amount. We gave each fire district, because in the past when we were at 45 mils, the city took 37 mils and gave the other 8 mils to each one of the fire districts. This time around, because we were only starting with 29 mils, we ended up keeping 26 mils for the city and giving each of the fire districts 3 mils. So those were all significant changes. Now, if they don't pass it, I mean, I haven't looked that far ahead as to what would do. I imagine we would have to send out supplemental bills, but I'm hoping that it does go through now, because we have spent a lot of time trying to get that formula correct. I don't know, Scott, if you want to. Some
high-level items. The total cost of government increases in this budget from $165.5 million to $168.3 million. As the mayor mentioned, there are some gives and takes in that. The increase in pilot is certainly a give, which allows us to actually expand public services that can help create greater investment in the city, as well as serve the children, women, men, and seniors of the city. So that's sort of part of the narrative of the budget here. Well, I think that's it. This is, as you know, I came into the budget process late, so I have not absorbed the chart of accounts yet. So understanding where things land is a little bit challenging. But I do believe that this administration, if given $168.3 million, can do great things for the city.
And one other additional, this was because of contractual, mostly every city employee received a 2% raise, and the West Haven Police Department also have received a 2.5% increase. We have used ARPA funds to supplement. They needed an increase because I don't know, how much everyone knows, but we were losing police officers very, very quickly. We were a training ground. We were in crisis mode, so we had to do something to increase the salary. And so what we did, and I checked with our labor attorney, Chris Hodgkins, and he had stated it was a legal use of the ARPA funds was to use the ARPA funds to increase every police officer's salary by $10,000. We did put that in the ARPA plan. The ARPA plan right now, I know that's later on the agenda, but that will be discussed at a meeting actually tomorrow night held by the city council. For them to be able to start their due diligence and what they want in the ARPA plan, or maybe don't want, or want to make changes to. So that was an important, an important item for our police department, and keeping the police department here and keeping our trained officers with us, because they have, relationships in neighborhoods and different things like that. That being said, we do realize going forward, and the council is very well aware of it, we have to sustain that funding. So we have it in for 2 years, if you will, of the ARPA funding, and I believe it's $2.4 million total, but we will have to sustain that funding. So it's not a 2-year, $10,000 each salary. It will be maintained in the budgets to come, and that will be something when we, again, are updating our 5-year plan, that we will address in the 5-year plan, so that the MARB members can see that we are sustaining that.
Okay. So it's an increase to the base budget, it's not a one-time?
Correct, it's an increase to the base budget for the next 2 years out of ARPA, but then after that, then the city has to, again, pick it up. So we will put that in the 5-year plan, so that this way everyone can see what the plan is.
And there are 120 badges yielding the 1.2 times 2 years.
Thank you. Okay. Question? I know that we're getting this, hot off the press. We're going to get another opportunity to talk through this.
The ink is still wet on it.
It's definitely hot off the press. You caught that right, Kim.
It is. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jackson. I agree. Mr. White?
Yes, thank you. Recognizing that, the ink hasn't dried yet, I did note that there is no mention of impact on the general fund. And I think that could be significant, because I'm thinking of 2 particular items. One is the fact that MARB funding for 2021, which I believe was in the budget, has been withheld thus far. Secondly, my understanding is that the feds are going to be looking to the city to make up the CARE Act funds that were misappropriated. Both of those are fairly significant, and I'm just wondering if there's any thought about how those are going to be handled and the impact on the general fund.
Just to let you know, I don't know yet how the feds are going to address it, and they haven't spoken to me directly, so that one I'll leave until I can have a conversation with them and how we're going to go forward with that. But as far as the MARB funding, the last projection, and I did check with Michael Mylone after we got off the air, the last projection was approximately, I think, a $2.3 to $2.5 million surplus for FY21, and that is without the MARB funding.
So this proposed budget and the last budget did not include any MARB funding?
Correct. There hasn't been, this is our second year FY22, but FY21, we were able to do it without the MARB funding. So again, so the MARB doesn't have to give us any of that funding, even if we were to fit all the criteria.
Just so I understand, are you saying that for 2021, you not only made up for the $2 million or so of MARB funds that were withheld, you had a surplus on top of that?
Correct.
Yes.
We've been doing things differently. Believe me, we've tried very hard to move forward correctly and have sustainable revenue streams and also look at our expenditures, and we do our best to do that. So yes, I even had clarification. As I said, Michael Mylone presented out with that, and I asked him afterwards, because I thought about it, I said, wait a minute, is that with, because I thought it was without the MARB funds, and he said, yes, it was without the MARB funds.
And let's be clear, they have not completed their year-end audit.
Correct.
Those are unaudited numbers, so those numbers could change, Bob.
Yes. And one other thing I did want to note too, when I was going over the budget, just so that the ADEC for the police went up quite a bit, just to make the MARB members aware of that. I believe it was a little over $1.2 million. We increased it for the actuary.
Sorry, we can't hear you, Mayor. We got a lot of static.
Oh, I'm sorry. How about now? I'll talk a little closer to the phone. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I was just saying the ADEC for the police department, that went up the 1.2, a little over $1.2 million for the annual. And so that was included, and you'll see noted also in the budget.
You mentioned, who is that? Who were you referencing that ADEC going up for?
West Haven Police Department, their pension
Please,
fund.
thank you.
Yes,
Very good.
please.
Okay, thank you. Mr. White, I don't think you have another question. Your hand is up, but Tom, I see that you do.
Sure, thank you. Could I ask you, Mayor, to again walk through the new positions that are part of this budget? In particular, my concern or what I want to focus on is understanding that the city is adding positions that we've talked about previously, purchasing area and the personnel area and the finance areas to address the deficiencies and operational issues that obviously are well known. And I want to make sure that the city is including all of the positions that we've talked about in the past, and hear from you on that. Thank you.
Okay. So,
Thank you, Tom. You
Sorry.
stole my question.
okay,
Good.
the first three are all in procurement. And they are not only going to be new to next year's budget, we have incorporated them into this year's budget as well. So one, actually, he just started today. Our Director of Procurement is on site, excited to get started. He is a West Haven resident. He has many years of procurement experience, and so we look forward to welcoming him. I've already introduced him around before I got on this meeting to as many people as I could. Additionally, and I know, Tom, it was you who asked for this, and I think it's important, the buyer position. That one we are putting up also. That one will be advertised shortly. I don't know, Pam will be here in a little while. I told them all they didn't have to sit for all of this, so they could do, after we were done. So that is another one. And then also, the last one is an administrative person, because anytime you have a department like that, my understanding is, and rightfully so, you need an administrative person. Now, in personnel, I want to make sure I get the right ones. We have in personnel this time around, because we've already increased some of these in FY '22. But what we are doing is an organization development specialist. And that was one of the positions that I talked to Pam about, and that was requested. We're still having, unfortunately, and Pam can go into this a little bit more, it is funded in the budget for FY '22, and again, it is funded in the budget for FY '23, and that's a personnel generalist. For whatever reason, we just can't get a lot of, she had, I guess, a couple of, interest things, and again, she can elaborate more, but I don't think that either they were qualified or didn't meet the standards of, what the job description stated. She will be on a little bit later to go over everything and her initiatives, but that was the other one. Let me see if I can grab the one for finance. There's one in Park and Rec too, but I'm sure you're not as interested in that one, although it's very, very important as well, because I know there was another one in finance. Do you know what the finance is on? Because I always skip over it, I don't know why. I just don't want to give you the wrong name for it, because there's a new one this time around. And we filled all the other. Pardon me?
Yeah, with the personnel generalist, that's going to be providing a full-time payroll person? Because I know that the combined position, Pam was stating that was not ideal for the unit, and that she was looking for, I believe, a personnel generalist as well as a payroll person.
I knew she was.
It was a combined.
Well, she gave me the personnel generalist, and then the other one that I just gave you, I haven't heard about any other ones, because pretty much everyone got what they wanted. Here we go. Controller. So, they added, saying over the years, so
a separate payroll specialist position be created is in the minutes from last meeting, which would allow an HR generalist to be posted. I think it's two. I guess I'll wait to hear from Pam.
Right, because I know that she put in another one, but that we did do two positions, and one has a salary of $75,000. That one was in there, and it was that name I just gave you for that one.
Yeah, organizational development.
Correct. That was that one. I didn't know or don't have anything in here or any of my notes as far as a third one. So Pam will be on shortly, so then we can go over that. Now, on the comptroller, and we filled most of the positions. Let's see. We have, pardon me?
You still have two pending positions in purchasing right now.
We have two.
Only have two.
Yeah, we have buyer and admin.
The admin, buyer and the admin.
And I think they're posted. I didn't go on CCM this morning to see if they were there, but I believe they're posted.
Okay. And do you know about the additional finance one? You don't know?
We did, again, I don't know if that one is posted too, but it is the junior financial analyst at a salary of $55,631. So all the rest are gone. So we have all of them
All right, we can, we can make sure that you'll be prepared to report out on these at the next meeting, because I know in the next, West Haven, subcommittee, we'll probably be talking about budget again.
Yeah, I'll put that on my list to report out and to get it to Julie in advance of the meeting.
Yes, absolutely, and as I said, Pam is going to talk on the report of the staffing issues, so that's why that should be all covered there on where, because she's doing it the citywide, not just for her department.
Right. Mr. White has a question.
Yeah, I think the city should take a look at the summary that Julian prepared for us. It had 11 new positions and 2 deletions, and I'm not sure they line up with what the mayor was saying. They do in many cases, but I didn't see a buyer, for example. There may be a new, another name for it. So rather than beat a dead horse, if you could just look at that when you're reporting.
Yeah, I think we call the buyer a procurement specialist.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not on the list, but whatever, go ahead.
Yeah,
I can very quickly, I can just speak to that a little bit. So that table represents any positions that are funded in FY23 that were not previously funded, regardless of whether they're open or not. So there are some cases, and the buyer is one of those examples, where the buyer is a position that is funded in the current year as a different title and is also funded next year as a buyer. So I didn't treat that as an addition. The other positions are either new and funded, or positions that were, that existed. For example, there's some a police captain position has been sort of on the list of authorized positions for many years, but wasn't funded in the current year, so I treated that as an addition. So a number of these, as you go down the list, or you pointed out that they align with some of the comments leading up to this point in the conversation. You know, they're recognizable as positions that were created and funded specifically to address the sort of organizational issues in the procurement division, in the finance division, and in human resources. So as so I can walk through through that with the city when they prepare a response to kind of give overall assessment or overall exhibit on changes in staffing in the budget.
And
Yeah, I'm glad
Julian,
to see the IT one there.
Julian, thank you so much for reminding me of the captain of the police department, because the reason we felt it necessary, because we've been without a captain, and I don't say 2 captains actually, technically back years ago there were 4 captains. Then it went to 3, and then it went to 2, and it stayed at 2 for a very long time. But with the introduction of police body cameras and dash cameras and all the FOI requests and different things that we will have and the challenges with that, the police department asked and the city council agreed to fund that position going forward. So it actually started being funded in FY22, and it will continue now in FY23.
Okay. Any other questions? Again, I know this is hot off the press. Julian, thank you so much for your summary, because this is very, very helpful for all of us to have the highlights. I think we will come prepared for our next meeting with additional questions, and also, I think that's what else is included in here we need to talk about is the 5-year plan. And are you, as far as debt is concerned, are you looking to go out for any new debt this year?
Yes.
Yes, we will probably go out for a limited issuance in late September, early October.
Okay.
So we're working with our financial advisor to size it and to put it together.
Yeah, we've already contacted Bill Lindsay, and two of the largest drivers on there will be the final debt service for West Haven High School, and then also we're building Washington School, which is an elementary school. The existing one is 109 years old, and so that is being replaced, so it'll be like the beginning of the debt service for that as well.
And we're watching the Fed movements, so we'll try to time it out so that we
Yes.
get the best possible rate before they continue to increase.
Right, absolutely.
Okay. I did notice one thing, and I don't know if Tremaine is looking to join us today, but in your mayor's budget, on page 114, there were 2 items, or maybe 3 items that were listed here that is IT related, which is Windows servers end of life, and also some VMware update end of life. I don't see that proposal in the budget. Was that taken care of, or is that still an open item that he's looking for?
That is, so VMware, we have reached end of life on VMware. I'm actually going to seek to transfer those FY21 dollars into a general account. Your Windows server, same scenario. It's been replaced, but we do have significant IT needs, so I'm trying to put them into a general account with the approval of the mayor and the council to generalize those accounts so that Jermaine can use them in areas of current need.
Yeah, perfect.
There's also some bonding asks that he had made, and again, he is supposed to be reporting out here today. We were just going to let him know when it got a little bit closer. And so he did have, one was, I think it was for $200,000 altogether. One thing I do want to let everyone be aware of too, the 5-year capital budget, that is like the original one. There is an updated one that somehow got swapped out when they were copying in the copying center, so we will be getting that to you today, so you will have the complete budget with the capital budget attached, the 5-year capital plan.
Oh, okay, this is not accurate?
No, it has some deletions, it has some combinations, some things that we took off the older police cars to replace them with newer ones.
Right. All right, then I won't spend any time in that area. Okay, any other questions? Julian?
I will, I'll save, excuse me, I'll save my questions and get them in writing to the city so they can look into them in advance of our meeting, yeah.
Appreciate that.
Very good, thank you. Sorry, I'm fumbling here because I just covered up my agenda accidentally. All right. If we don't have any more questions in this preliminary budget, I think that, well, I guess it's not preliminary, this is the mayor's budget, but it's not final. Again, the ink is still wet on this. I think that we will, any questions that you want to bring forward, can get them off to the city in preparation for our next meeting. And let's move on to agenda item number 6, which is the ARPA funds, which was deferred from the last meeting. I know we ran out of time.
So I did present this to the city council, and actually they will be having a public meeting on it tomorrow night as far as going over it, because as my understanding is now, it's transferred similar to our budget process, so it goes to the city council. They'll make whatever necessary changes, additions, deletions, whatever they decide to do, and then we will move forward with getting some of these projects started.
But this has been generated through a series of public meetings that the mayor has had, so it has significant public input. It's a large amount of money, and you know, we're taking this seriously.
And I see that you added a grant administration position, is it a grant writer or is it grant administration?
Grant administration.
Correct, to,
Perfect, okay.
and we also have a civilian board that is the same, pretty much the same group, except maybe for one or two members, that ran the, our $130 million high school project. They don't decide on, you know, who gets funding or anything at all like that, but they do facilitate projects, make sure, you know, RFQs, they work hand in hand with finance. But that's why we did allocate other funding at the end, because we're gonna, you know, we're gonna need backup, as we know, there's gonna be, this is a lot of money, Scott Jackson just said, and so we want it done right and accurate, and so we do need personnel in there, although the expectation is now this personnel will only be there until the money all gets funded and out, so it's not like a full-time forever position. Temporary.
Yeah, durational.
Correct, thank you.
Okay. Have you developed a job description? You've already started to use this money, I think that you said, right? Or you're planning to?
No.
With the FY23 budget for the police. You haven't touched it yet?
Correct. We have not touched it.
Okay.
And what I have done is every month, we take a snapshot, if you will, of the money where it sits in the bank account, and we make sure that the city council goes along with that, they see it, and so that they have some comfort level as well. So we're trying to be as transparent as possible.
Okay. Is your plan to have a separate checking account and use that account that's there, or is it just a holding place?
We will create at least one special fund,
Right.
Depending on how the council determines the funds will be spent.
Thank you. All right. So do you want to give us a highlight of this plan on each one of the areas and your intent? I know I could read it, but it would be good to hear some exciting things here that's going to happen.
Well,
even just a highlight?
Well, yes, well, the first thing, although they have the name Housing Crisis Center Fund, what we're looking at is, honestly, a homeless shelter in West Haven, because we do have a lot of need. So what we have done, this civilian group that I've already put together, they've had speakers, and they had a woman come from New Haven, and the way it would be taken care of, if you will, is West Haven, we would work with Corporation Counsel, because he's good at finding foreclosures and people that owe us taxes, and foreclose on those properties, and then turn that into housing for the homeless. What we would then do is we're not going to manage it. We would own the structure, but we're not going to manage it from day to day, because again, that's not what we do. So we can incorporate this woman who has done it since the 60s. She's at a 501c3. She has, she runs a homeless shelter on Davenport Avenue in Haven, which my understanding is quite successful. And that is what we're looking to mirror, because again, West Haven isn't going to have, the resources to continue to do this, but if we could at least set it up, because we do have serious need in West Haven, and that obviously was exacerbated by COVID, as with everyone else, but we still do have homeless people, and it would be nice, and this is more too, not just a one, big room and everybody's in or anything like that. This is more like apartment type thing, so it's not only for a homeless person, but homeless people with children, that they can, be able to be schooled properly and not be on the street. So that's one. The food bank support is pretty much, I think that one is kind of self-explanatory. We did put $400,000 in there. direct cash aid to small businesses. So programs will be developed depending on how large your business is. And again, we've had trouble with leasing and renting, and some businesses have struggled, a lot of businesses have struggled through this. So there'll be a program set up that will be facilitated fairly across the board, and this is the funding that we allotted to that. And like I said, this is all still temporary until the council. We did the neighborhood pocket parks, open space, trees and gardens. That, we have a lot of parks, and Plainfield Avenue, that's where they want to put in a community garden, and also Marginal Drive. Marginal Drive connects, it's right under the Haven, West Haven line, so park belongs to New Haven, park belongs to West Haven. Fortunately, over the years, because that road hasn't been opened and it's not very well lit down there, there's a lot of dumping, there's a lot of situations that go on there. So we thought it'd be good to invest some of this money into making it very well lit, a connector between New Haven and West Haven. I haven't talked to Mayor Elicker about that, but I will, to clean up the area and make it a very nice walking trail. I know a lot of residents had said the need, and they wanted to see that. So that would be that one, and any funding we have, we would spruce up any of the playgrounds or pocket parks or any of the parks that we possibly could, because we have, again, things that are in need in certain neighborhoods, especially that, like, some of them haven't been touched or overgrown and different things like that. Allentown Library Branch, now, the library closed their branch, I want to say now it's probably 2 years ago. They
Beginning of COVID.
What?
Beginning of COVID.
Beginning of COVID, I've been told. So what's happened is they have 2 other branches. They have a main branch, and they have one in West Shore. It's called Ora Mason. So they do want to get an Allentown library back up and running, because again, there was a very large need in Allentown for this library. So I know that they were looking for $5 million, but in light of, there were so many asks, it's very hard to choose, because I don't think I heard a bad ask, if you will. Everything was very good, again, I say we could spend this money probably 3 times over. So we wanted to put that. The Board of Ed has been gracious enough to say that if they want to have the part of the land, because Carrigan School sits on a large piece of land that belongs to West Haven. So they said that they could build it there if that would help in any way. So that right now is what has been proposed for right now. Public health outreach, again, I think kind of speaks for itself with the health department. We have room on the 2nd floor, so we wanted to put together, if we could, like, have vaccinations on site, if you will. We used to just put like a pop-up, if you will, or use Noble School. We want more of a permanent thing, not only because of COVID. COVID obviously is one of the major drivers, but we could offer other vaccinations, whether it be the flu or, pneumonia shots or vaccinations like that. I know that Maureen Lillis, our health director, is very much in support of this, so that's what they were looking to do with that pot of money. And mental health, that's from Bridges. On the next page, it's $100,000. I've spoken with Bridges. They take care of a lot of West Haven residents, so I felt that it would be, a good use of the money to allocate $100,000 to them for dealing with the issues for West Haven residents that they do deal with every day. The Art Center Phase 2 construction funding, that is more under the ARPA umbrella, if you will, for development. And again, during the pandemic, it's been very hard to get development. We do have a few projects though going on. The Art Center would be located in, it's the old Masonic temple that we had. The city does own that building. It has already been remediated of asbestos and any other toxic things that were in there. But now it's just a shell, if you would. Our downtown is suffering badly, and everyone feels that this would be a catalyst for bringing people to the downtown, help with economic, revitalization down there, because again, that's the best way to not have to push the mill rate high, is to get more on our commercial and our grand list. So that is the other one for the Art Center. We already have a committee looking into it. However, as I said, until the council blesses this right now is just a proposal. municipal building improvements, Johnson Senior Center, we were looking to refurbish that. We have a senior center, but it's very dated and, antiquated. And so we would like to put some funding into that to be able to take care of that. Also, we have a roof over the Child Development Center, which actually is connected to where the Johnson Senior Center. It's all one large building, two separate buildings. And then replacement of the windows in City Hall. The windows are, not energy efficient at all. You can see the, things blow like when it blows. So again, that was an accepted use. We're looking to make public works infrastructure paving and improvements with $2 million so that we can, we can take care of paving the streets, because there are a lot of streets, even though we have done quite a bit since we've gotten in, there's still much more to do. And then aid to the fire districts. This was an ask for each one of the fire districts, and because we have 3, the way that it works is we have to give the same amount to all 3. So you can't give Allentown $2 million and Center District, $50,000 and things like that. So that's why you see that they're all pretty much, exactly the same. Stormwater management. Who would have thought, but out of all the meetings that I had, this was the top issue throughout the whole city. We have severe flooding issues, and to the point where people in some areas, I know in Allentown on Lydia Street, they need canoes because it absolutely goes up through the basement and to the point where there is a river. They brought me pictures to show me, and it's terrible. Unfortunately, I wish we could put more. This is kind of really a drop in the bucket to try to, do some kind of help. And I know that we want to do a study to see which areas, because of course, it's flooding throughout the city. It's not every area, but it is flooding throughout the city. So everybody, of course, wants their flooding fixed. So that's why we have to have somebody come and, give us unbiased, okay, which areas need the most and the quickest and which can possibly wait a little bit. So that's what it lays out in there. And again, it seems like a lot of money, but my understanding is that's going to be really a drop in the bucket. Recycling and reuse center. This is, what I like about this is going to be a revenue stream once we put that up, because we get a certain percentage and everything of the bottles, so it's a revenue center. And it's something we don't have currently, so we thought it was something to put in. Again, many residents were very much in favor of this when we had the public hearing. Child pedestrian safety, we're trying to get connectivity with the sidewalks, especially around the schools and city streets, so that children aren't walking part of the time on the on the sidewalk, then they got to cross out into the street or into grass area. We think it would be safer. Broadband access is another important one that we put in, and again, anytime you can increase the access. I know that the library, if this goes in, said that they would be happy to administer it for us, because they've already done certain things and initiatives in the libraries by getting hotspots to children that don't have Wi-Fi access for whatever the reason. So I think that that's important. We also have problems, unfortunately, with different things that go on throughout the city. So I know this was a priority of Commissioner of Public Works Tom McCarthy and Police Chief Joe Perno. And they can see what is going on in real time, so they felt that this was very, very important as well. We also then created a first responder family relief fund. It's not a large fund, but it's a fund that can help the families, like for instance, if,
You've been muted. To unmute yourself, press
That wasn't me, I didn't touch anything. Can you hear?
Getting background. Sorry, Mayor.
I think-
You're on mute.
How about now?
You are no longer muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought I talked enough, so it was like the old days, they get the hook and they pull you off.
I can see somebody, there was another phone that was causing another interference, and I clicked it, and it was yours.
Okay, there you go, that was us who were causing trouble. So the first responder family relief is more or less like if a family member gets called out, they have to go like first responder. don't have any babysitting or whatever, they have to pay somebody. It was a small grant thing that we wanted to put in to try to, again, this was brought up at one of the meetings. The big one, as I said, one of the big ones is, because actually there are more, police personnel retention funding. And I have spoken, as I said earlier, with our labor attorney, who assures me that that is a use of the ARPA funds. We would like to put in Painter Park Sports Field House. And what that is for, it's not going to be huge, but in the summer, there is nowhere when we run our camps, our Painter Park camps, or if there's a, you know, how summer can be, it's sunny 1 minute and then an hour later there's a cloud burst and everyone gets wet now. So we wanted to have a secure, safe place for the children to go in case there is any kind of storm or storm issues. Sports camp support, we picked two, I know we had done this one last year, I think we did the cheer one as well, so that's just, again, camps to add to what our park rec is already putting out there, because again, idle children, it's better to keep them, I think, busy and engaged in the summertime, and so we thought that that would also be a good use. We put in the FEMA PA and the SLFRF rejection backup contingency, and all we did for right now is to put this aside, of this money, in case there are any hiccups in any of the FEMA reimbursement or whatever, because as we all know, we don't find out immediately with all of this. And then the oversight, the CARES Act financial oversight supports, it's several positions, as we will put, and we will hire for. As I said, they will be temporary, they will be several years, but at the end of, once the funding is gone, obviously these positions will be gone as well. And so after we did everything like that, we ended up, because I did want to leave a balance, because as we know, I don't think we're done with COVID yet. They were already talking about another variant that's mixing the last two, it sounds like, together. So I thought it was prudent not to spend every money, and this is just, you know, mine and the groups I've met with, but so it's a little over $3.5 million total, $900,000 being for the discretionary, qualified being 2.6. And one important decision we're going to make, and we'll have to sign on to it by the end of April. In the final rulings from this funding, they came out with, instead of going through the full calculation to figure out your revenue loss, you could take the one-time $10 million. The good thing about the one-time $10 million is that's it. So in other words, you don't have to worry in the future that somehow they're going to say you did your calculation wrong and we're taking back money. I equate it to the standard deduction on a tax form as opposed to the itemized deduction, because it's $10 million. So that's what we're going to choose. Well, again, as long as the council blesses it, I don't want to get ahead of myself. And that we have to execute, though, by April 30th, and it's one and done. So in other words, you can't say, well, I'm going to take the $10 million and sign off on it April 30th. Then in the middle of May say, no, I want to go back. No, it's final. Once we execute that and sign off on it, that's a final thing, so that will be it. And I think I gave a very quick overview, so I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Mr. Falsigno, I think you had one. I just wanted the mayor to be able to get through everything, so if the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I think this is just wonderful, and these are, you have $29 million to satisfy, numerous issues. My question is, a lot of these are, fixing roads is one thing, but when you start building buildings and you start making investments in things that going forward you are going to have to support, have you thought about what it's going to cost the city to maintain these investments? And in addition to that, my other question is, we still have a pension problem. So I think this is great, all these things that you're doing, and this money is kind of a real panacea for a lot of people and a lot of towns and a lot of cities, under very unfortunate circumstances. But I think you just have to think a little further out front. That's just I'm just asking if you have.
Thank you, and yes, we have, and we're looking for groups for the art center. There's already a group of volunteers, we're looking probably for, again, similar to like the shoe booth. So we put it up, and then you're gonna have a group run it. As far as the pension, we are working on a solution for the West Haven PD pension, but even if I wasn't, which I am, I wanna be clear, these funds cannot be used for pensions, period. So that's not even
I'm not even suggesting that they're used for, and I know that. But what I'm saying is you have these issues, and once you make an investment in a building that has to be maintained, or another program that has to be maintained 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road after all this money has been spent, there's only one place you can get the money from, and that's by one of the people up there, for the mark.
The homeless.
And you mentioned something about the theater. I know a little bit about theaters only because my business is down at the food center, which Longworth Theater has had an unfortunate couple of years because of COVID. So I think you have to maybe speak to them and see how their ticket sales are and some of the other things that are going on in New Haven. Because I think running a theater is an expensive proposition.
Well, and again, these are things we're going through, and as far as the homeless shelter, I did explain that, that we're not going to be there maintaining, we are there to set up the building, and then we will own it. However, another group, and the woman that runs the homeless shelter at Davenport Avenue, has a 501c3. She's had established since the 60s. They will secure the funding and the grants to sustain that building. So I have already looked into that, because I do agree with you. That's one thing I've seen, because I've lived in West Haven for over 40 years now, is that we're good at putting things up. We're not always the best at maintaining them. So that's why I am looking for a sustainable plan going forward. And again, this is just myself and the groups I have met with and the people I've engaged with. As I said, the final decision will be up to the city council. They're having, we had a joint session a few weeks back, but now the city council will be running a meeting tomorrow night for anyone who wants to engage or comment one way or another on this. So as I said, we're trying very hard to make sure, they are sustainable. Now, obviously, the building we're going to put up at Park Rec, we will maintain that, because that is going to be city property and a city building.
Right, now, I just want to bring that to the board's attention. That's just my deal, and I think they're all wonderful ideas and programs, so I wish you the best. I just want to make sure that they're supported.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your input. Are there any other questions?
Yes, Mr. Hamilton.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. I have a question first for Tim. Is this plan here obviously requires approval of the city council? Does it require any approval from MARB, or are we really seeing it for informational purposes?
Informational purposes. Do you agree, Julian?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I guess my other comment is really along the lines of Mr. Valdegno's, which is, I think it would be helpful for anyone looking at this and evaluating this to have the numbers sort of broken down into maybe 3 buckets. One being those projects or proposed expenses that are truly sort of one-time, no recurring expenses whatsoever, like the paving, $2 million for DPW infrastructure and paving would clearly be, a one-and-done kind of expense. Another category that might be categorized as expenses that have ongoing financial implications, but for which you are anticipating that the city is not really going to be on the hook for it. So I'm thinking, I heard you correctly, your housing crisis fund may fall into that category where you're expecting a nonprofit, outside nonprofit to secure grant funds and other funds to operate the program. Obviously, there's some uncertainty if they are unable to secure enough funds, they may be back to you to help close a budget gap. That's always a possibility. And then the third area would be expenses that are ongoing or anticipated to be ongoing. So I believe your police personnel retention fund is one where you indicated that you would be working to build that into your budget after a 2-year period, funding from the ARPA. So that would be, straight out ongoing financial implication or financial cost to the city. So I would think if I were sitting on the city council, it would be helpful to have these two projects broken down into that sort of categorization, if you will. So that's my recommendation.
Yeah, I think what they're waiting for though is like now they want to see what, their groups come in and are they on the same page? In other words, are they going to pass all these projects? Are they not? Are they going to pass some of them first? And then, so that now up to the city council. But I do agree this, this has been a long thing, but this is a good thing for West Haven. And I couldn't be happier that we were granted this money. And I do believe no matter what decisions the city council makes going forward, they're going to be good decisions for West Haven and to help us on.
And one added point is this is really for you as you update the 5-year financial plan and for us as we look at the 5-year financial plan to the extent that there are items that are on this list that do have ongoing financial implications for the city, such as the personnel retention funding, that cost, when it is expected to come back to the city budget or if the city budget should be built into the 5-year financial plan at that time.
I agree, and that was always in the picture. I am very well aware that we have to sustain this, and so is the city council. We have all talked about it. The police department is aware of the expectations. And I also want to say, even though, I guess it's, what do they call it, informational, I do value all of your opinions because, again, I always say I'm one person, I don't have all the answers, and that's why I reached out to as many groups, and to me, the MARB is still another group that has valuable input for us.
Right, so Mayor, in that preparation of the 5-year plan, as Mr. Hamilton has mentioned, that it would be helpful for us to know the ongoing expenses for each one of these. So like the arrangement that you're looking to do to put forth with the housing crisis, you're going to own the building, so are you going to be maintaining the building? Are you going to be getting revenue back from them and they're going to be renting it? Or are they going to be leasing it and then they have to maintain all of that? We're down to about 15 minutes left to this meeting. I just want to be cautious of the other items too. But I think that there's a little bit more questions to be answered here with your list. But I think that it's good to see that you have a plan.
Yes, I always had a plan. Believe me, I'm a planning person. Okay, I don't know if we're done with this because I have both Jane Samuels here and Wilma for purchasing.
Yep, I'm going to, and does anybody of the MARB members have any other questions about the ARPA before we move on to the next agenda item? No, I see. Okay, so we'll move on to the MOA action plan and get an update. What I would ask, we'll start with human resources first. Is Pam with you?
No, she's the only one not, but I have both Wilma and Jermaine.
Kristen Clark.
I do.
All right, so we can start with Jermaine and then we can move to Wilma because that's IT capital. Jermaine, just hit us with the items that are still open is really what I want you to focus on, please. We all have your tracking sheet.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Thank you. Nice to see you, Jermaine.
Nice to see you as well. So the items that's still currently open right now is our migration for our SharePoint. So the SharePoint project is pretty much us migrating the departmental drives into SharePoint. This way they can have access to their department information. What we're running into issues regarding policies that was not set up and put in place how they were supposed to be. So when I did do some of the migration for some of the departments, I started hearing feedbacks from the department heads that they are now noticing that some users has access to information that they shouldn't. And so because of that, I had to start going back and actually recreating policies or new policies that was never implemented before. So that's kind of why you can see here where it says OneDrive and it says SharePoint, it says I had a revised date of 3/31/2022. Now I'm hoping that by then, you know, we can actually have everything in place. But it seems like it's really based on the department themselves and the department heads and just working with me to help me figure out who should have access to what and who shouldn't have access. This way I can go back and recreate all these policies per department basis. The other issue here...
Was the city using, Jermaine, was the city using SharePoint in the past?
They weren't using SharePoint. What they were using is just a file server, which, again, there were policies configured there, but when I did the migration with Microsoft recommendation SharePoint migration tool, it brought over every single permissions that it needed to. But again, like I said, because they're new to SharePoint now and they can actually see who has access to what, they want to make sure that we go ahead and redesign some of the policies and get the correct people to be...
Understand.
Yep.
So 3.1, is that the one that's next?
Yeah, so...
Is it open item?
Correct. So 3.1, the reason that one is still open, we had a date there for 6/30/2022. The reason why that one is still open is we've done roughly about 85% of the server migration, but there is some other legacy servers out there that we need to move off of, but we cannot move off of it as yet, only because those servers are running some applications that is not supported on a 2019 box. And so there's other projects that needs to be completed before we can get off of those servers.
Okay. Do you think the timeline is still good with the June 30th?
I'm hoping so, but this depends on other department heads as well, so.
Okay.
So at, looks like
4.6?
4.6, right, so 4.6 deals with the actual agent that we install on majority of our virtual servers and on some of our physical servers, and this software is the vehicle to back up our backups into Microsoft Azure Cloud. We ran into a little bit of issues with, again, the legacy servers run in 2008 and 2003. Apparently the software, they're having a problem where it's not supporting the actual operating system. However, I'm working with Haiku to find a workaround in order for us to still be able to back these servers up. And once that happens, then I will actually have to figure out how we can restore those servers into our Nutanix hyperconverged cluster. So that's the only
There's a lot of work ahead of you.
The only hold up there is we're working with Haiku. So I put a revised date in there, hoping that they get it resolved. However, again, it depends on what they come back to me with.
Okay. So they're contingent. Okay.
Yep. And it looks like. Got it.
We're down to running out of time, and I have a couple others to look at. Do you see that any of the others that have the June 30th date or the, October 22 date, are any of those, items that should be brought to our attention?
Not at this moment, no.
Okay, then we can pass to the next meeting, if you don't mind.
Thank you.
This way we know what we're up to date.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Jermaine.
Before you go, Jermaine, I just have a quick question.
I'm sorry, I did not see your hand. Forgive me.
All right. Thank you. If you could comment briefly on any steps you're taking with respect to protecting against cyber attacks.
Yeah, sure. So.
Any of your energies focused on that?
Sure, so I believe one of the last discussion we did have, we spoke about Duo and the security there, and we raised some concerns about the cost of Duo. However, trying to figure out what we would actually spend, we couldn't really find that just as yet. But to increase that, what we have done is we've used what Microsoft provides to us, which is Microsoft Authenticator. So to increase our security posture, we have turned on Microsoft MFA two-factor. So what it's doing now is, in order for you to get into Microsoft, you have to go through two-factor, whether it's through the Microsoft Authenticator app, or they would have to give you guys a call or send a text message in order for you to access our data.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Is that it? Thanks.
Thanks, Christine.
They want to go back to
Purchasing,
payment.
I heard that Wilma is there.
Good morning.
Hi, Wilma.
How are you? So most of the items on my list are already complete. I have completed my edits to the ordinance, and it's going to the new finance director. He also is going to share it. Our new procurement director started today. I don't know if you guys knew that, and he wanted to share my changes in the ordinances with him too before we presented it to the mayor.
Okay, so those are pending.
They are. They should be completed, in the next
very
week,
short
I
order.
would say. The finance director's already looked at them, like I said, he just wants to share it with the new procurement director before it goes to the mayor.
All right. That's the only item that you had to bring us up to date on?
I did. Other than that, I'm still just moving along, doing a lot of bidding and some RFPs, and people are participating nicely.
Very good. Any questions for Wilma? In purchasing, only one position's been filled yet, right, Wilma?
Correct. The other two are posted, but Pam did come in if you want to talk to her about human resources.
Okay.
Thanks.
That would be great.
Kim, I have a quick question on purchasing.
Sure.
Good.
Could you just tell us what the current process is now for setting up new vendors in the city or in units? Has that process changed? And I'm particularly interested in the due diligence that you are undertaking or not with respect to the creation of new vendors and the segregation of duties. Is it being handled by someone who also does not process invoices?
It has not moved yet, but it is moving to purchasing this week, now that the new procurement director is here. So I've been filling him in this morning on all the things that are moving over to him. My office did vendor creation in Meriden, and he's from the town of Newtown, and his office also did vendor creation there. So that will be moving over to him immediately.
And Tom, one of the things that I would like to implement is regular reporting to other folks who actually know people in West Haven, who are here at City Hall to kind of cross-check whether or not there's anyone or anything that looks like it might be suspicious or need a little bit more looking into.
Scrutiny, yeah.
Well, and in purchasing too, we would always ask why somebody needed a new vendor. So obviously if they were a new bidder and they won, we would know that because it was our bid. But if a department came in with a new vendor, we would always want to know why. Was there a problem with the old one? Where did he come from? And we would always just kind of check around to make sure it wasn't just someone well-connected.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we haven't seen the audit report, but I know that previous management letters have identified this as a deficiency, and I suspect that the audit report is going to find that that is one of the deficiencies that helped allow that theft or apparent theft to occur here. So I do think it's a really high priority area for the city to really completely remap and tighten up the whole issue of how vendors are authorized in the system and how they're managed.
Well, I think, to tell you the truth, that if there was a purchasing department, that wouldn't have happened because those vouchers were for a lot of money, and with a $10,000 bid limit, purchasing is going to be questioning anything over $10,000. They're also going to be asking the accounts payable people if they see invoices over $10,000 to just double check with purchasing that there was a bid or an RFP process. So I think it goes beyond the vendor creation. It actually goes to the accounts payable to make sure that there's a bid number, an RFP number, or to check with purchasing that they're aware that they're paying a large invoice. So there just needs to be a little more collaboration between departments.
And having a purchasing department.
Absolutely.
All right, I know that we are a bit running out of time. Any other, Christine, your hand is up. No? Okay, very good. No other questions in purchasing? I guess if Pam is with you, maybe we can just get some quick high level and review.
Sure. Thank you, Will.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
My update is brief, so I think we can wrap up on a timely note. My only update really is in the area of my strategic plan under technology and the ADP portal, where we are moving in the direction of more utilization in the recruiting functionality of the ADP portal. So what we're working on now is loading all the new hire forms that are, very paper intensive, and making them, launching them in a fillable format for new incumbents to complete before they're actually on board. So it's certainly a more efficient way to track the paperwork, and ADP offers the means to do that. They also have a function where we can load in an onboarding schedule for newly hired employees when they're actually on site to track specific events in helping them assimilate to the organization. And we're forming that schedule of events, and that's actually in process, but we'll actually have the ADP functionality to utilize the technology for that aspect.
That's great news. I have one question. Did you, in the budget and based on the existing position, so when I was asking the mayor about a payroll specialist, I did not hear that was listed as a position. Is that an additional position, or is it a restructure of an existing?
That was to be a separate position.
Okay, I do not think that that's on the list that they need to take back or consider.
Well, we will evaluate that offline and report back at the
Sure.
next meeting.
Thank you, very good. I know you have the organizational development one that was requested, and any other report outs that you need to bring to our attention, because we are running out of time.
Know that I guess on the staffing plan, we've made considerable progress, but we did have a couple setbacks.
Okay.
We extended an offer for the building official, one of two positions we have open, and the candidate declined.
Okay.
We also had a strong candidate and extended an offer for the housing specialist, and that candidate declined. And they all had very relevant municipal background and experience, and we were very sad to see that didn't move forward. So in terms of, those are the setbacks, but as noted, all the hires are in place that have been scheduled, and offers were out and accepted as it's noted. We do have an additional opening, though, with Bob Ziskowski's resignation that he tendered earlier this month. So we are actively in a recruitment mode for his replacement.
Okay, has that been posted?
It's been posted internally and it's gone outside as well, just recently though, so.
Okay, all right.
That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the MARB members? I think that we know the status of the corrective action, but from where it is and where it was, especially with the change of the CFO, I'm going to not look to get an update in that one. We can bring that up at the next meeting because I know that your focus has been on budget. Scott, is that okay?
That's perfect.
Okay. And with that, I don't think we have any other agenda items to adjust today. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Thanks, Christine. And how about a second?
Second.
Thank you, Stephen. Oh, all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you all, and appreciate your time, and we will be talking in a couple of weeks again. This meeting is no longer being recorded or transcribed.
Do we know how to shut these things off? Who am I asking? Yeah, I think he knows how to shut these things off. I just want to wait until they're off, because there's something underneath where Lee is. Because I've got just a few minutes. Wilma, I don't have anything for this unless there's something.
No, I'm good.